This week, there was a very interesting development in American football in the National Football League. There's an individual, his name is Brock Purdy. He's a quarterback, and he was picked number 262 out of last year's draft. So by the San Francisco 49ers. So he's the last pick of the draft. And the person who's picked last of the whole draft is generally known as Mr. Irrelevant. Not relevant because he's not going to play. Well, it turns out that all the people ahead of him, who are meant to be stars in the league, got injured, and he had to play this year. And since he started playing, they won 6 games in a row, which is very nice, a very nice record. Now, the interesting thing is that this Brock Purdy, he speaks like a chassid. He says, every time I play, I want others to see God through what I do. That every time I get onto the field, I want to bring honor to God. Even when I lose, I point to heaven and I thank God for giving me the opportunity to play. Everything that happens has a reason. Everything is a lesson from God. Now, amongst the Jewish leaders of old, there are many other Mr. Irrelevant. First and foremost amongst them is King David. King David was born to a very honorable, respected family, to Yishai, his father, who was one of the great righteous people of his time. He had 7 sons, and they were all part of this respected family. And but David himself, was the youngest, and he was pushed away from the family. They didn't look different. He was gingy, he was shorter, and for other events that happened before he was born, that he was kind of seen as an outcast or black sheep. And he would spend time in the desert where he would pray to God as he wished and connect to God. And from time to time, he'd visit his family. At the end, the family appointed him to be the shepherd in the desert, and then they hardly ever saw him. One day, to the house of Yishai comes the prophet of the day, one of the greatest prophets ever in Israel, Shmuel Hanavi. And he comes to them and he says that God had commanded him to anoint one of them as the king of Israel. Now, God didn't tell him which one of Yishai's sons. He just said one of Yishai's sons. So he comes and he sees the oldest one. He was very impressive, very handsome. And he was sure that this is the future king. But Hashem says, no, you got the wrong one. Don't look at what he looks like on the outside. Man sees with his eyes, but Hashem sees the heart. So Yishai calls his second son and the third son, and so on. It went all of his sons, and none of them were the one who was going to be the king. And then he says to Shmuel says to Yishai, "You don't have any other children?" He says, "Yeah, we have one. He's shepherding the sheep." So he says, "Go call him. We're not going to sit down to eat until he comes." And so he does. And when he comes in, Hashem tells Shmuel, "This is the man." And Shmuel anoints him as the king of Israel. And from that day on, a new spirit of strength and ability, success came on to David. Now, the brothers, by the way, didn't change their attitude towards him. And so they went on to fight the war against the Philistines with Shaul. And King David is asked by his father to go and bring them 10 loaves of bread and bring back regards of how they are on the battlefield. David comes there, and then he hears Goliath announcing that he's ready to fight with a representative of the Jewish community, and whoever loses, well, his people will be enslaved to the other. And then he hears that whoever will succeed Goliath will have the daughter of Shaul, the king at the time, will be his wife. David says he's ready to do it. His brothers make fun of him. He says, "What? Why did you come here all together? You just wanted to watch. You just wanted to be to see the wars happening." But of course, as we know, David slew Goliath And he went from being Mr. Irrelevant to the most relevant person practically in Jewish history. King David is not only the king of that time, but the kingdom passes down from him to his children until ultimately Mashiach comes from King David. And of course, Joseph, who we read about last week, went from Mr. Irrelevant. The brothers hated him because he had the stupid dreams. He was the youngest. And to them, it seemed like this is nothing. And ultimately, he turned out to be the one when there was famine. No one knew what to do. And he's the one who saved the entire world from this famine. And so this is really a lesson for each one of us. Sometimes we think we're irrelevant, but we're extremely relevant. We have to realize that. The Jewish people as a whole could think we're irrelevant. We are, but we're the margin of error in the Chinese census. We're less than the margin of error in the Chinese census. Nevertheless, we're considered today the 10th most powerful nation in the world. And of course, what the Jewish people have given humanity is immeasurable. We're probably the most influential people. Not probably, we certainly are, because we bring God, His Torah, to every corner of the world. This is true for us to walk with Jewish pride, to know that we are Mr. Relevant, and not only as a community, but each individual Jew is Mr. Relevant, because God looks for each and one of us to achieve a mission that no one else can do. We each are Mr. Relevant. Good Shabbos.